There's so much dishonesty happening in the world right now. The explosion of our society is occurring. And this is being launched forward with all the wars that are occurring, that are about to occur, with the Epstein files dropping, and all of these hundreds of leaders being exposed for fraud, for abuse, for exploitation, for financial manipulation to get into places of power. And I wanted to just ask, like, what is it going to take for us as humans to actually just be able to come to a platform of honesty? And I find that these topics around, Epstein files and such are so explosively viral because they allow us to project onto another person as the evil person, as the bad person, as, yes, this person has all these exploitative evil qualities, and that's who I'm going to direct my hatred towards. And I think all of that is valid to a large extent. I'm not saying that these people shouldn't be prosecuted or held accountable, or that anything that they did is excusable. I find that it highlights, for me at least, this tendency towards being able to be pacified by making somebody else wrong and evil while ignoring that same exact seed and tendency for wrongdoing and for dishonesty in our own lives. Now, I'm not talking about exploiting billions of dollars and child trafficking and all these things. What I'm talking about is that same life-diminishing tendency to not actually be in integrity with what we say that we want and who we want to be in our aspirations. And I'll share a brief story about just honesty that was really relieving to me as one of the reasons why I was not being honest to myself that may help you. And so I found this Fender pack of picks. Inside are a bunch of guitar picks to play guitar with, and it says 2007 on the picks. And for one, that was an amazing moment for me to just see, wow, I've been doing something, which is playing guitar, for 20 years of my life. And I don't think I can say that about anything else that I've been doing as an activity or hobby in my life, that I've been playing music for 20 years of my life. But it reminded me of this time of my life where so much of my identity was wrapped around music, and it was a primary identity. It was such an important piece of self-expression for me, of actually coming to a wordless form of storytelling through art that really allowed my heart to be fully seen and expressed, and for me to understand myself very deeply. And so it was such an incredibly important part of my identity to be an artist. And when I moved into the monastery, that guitar piece really faded. I was traveling the world with no possessions. I was living in villages, milking cows, and sleeping on the floor with 100 other monks. And I moved into a monastery in New York City where I slept on the floor in one big room with 20 other monks. And I had my guitar, but I just kept telling myself, well, I don't have the private space. I really need like a creative cocoon in order to be able to create, which valid enough. But that was the story I was telling myself, and I kept feeling like I was falling short of being the person fully that I wanted to be, even though I was learning so much about myself in the ashram. And, I kept telling myself it was about space and privacy and time and the creative cocoon. Then I finally got my own room in the monastery, which was like a big deal at the time. And I had my own space, and I still didn't create. I still didn't pick up my guitar. Finally, I moved out of the ashram and had my own home when I graduated from the monastic phase of life. And I had space and I had time, and I still didn't pick up my guitar. One thing that was so important for me that really shifted everything was understanding that I have simply changed and evolved, and something that was so important to me in the past is no longer like primary part of my identity. It might be a secondary or tertiary part of my being, but to place it as primary and to feel like I was constantly falling short of it, it was, downgrading my quality of life. And so to come to a place of like, actually, I've changed. What I want has changed. This is no longer the most important thing. And to just be honest with that allowed me to stop putting that pressure on myself to create, which, of course, if any of you have ever been in an artistic space, the pressure to create doesn't usually help the creative process. Ironically enough, when I dropped that expectation of it being this primary part of my identity, then all of a sudden I started picking up my instrument again. And last night I was doing that as well. it just showed me this principle of, unless I'm in contact with who I am today and who I want to become, and am aligning my actions, thoughts, and words with that, then I'm going to feel obliged to continue playing out the habits and scripts and versions of myself that are no longer true. And that causes a lot of stress in a lot of people's lives. And so that's part of my question around what will it take for us to be honest, is how much are we coming in contact with the living, breathing version of who we are today? And what does that person want to birth? What is that person actually willing to commit to? What does that person have to say no to? What parts have to die in order for that new version to actually blossom? I've spoken to thousands and thousands of founders across the world, and so many good-hearted, sincere people have so many desires for service and for vision and community in the world. I want to start these projects, and I want to live off-grid, and I want to be self-sustainable, and I want to start a retreat center. And what I found is a lot of those people, and this is obviously my subjective judgment, it's not my job to not believe in people, but what I found when I was pressing into their life was a huge lack of actually aligning their daily actions and identity to a place where that would actually be possible to start the retreat center or to live off grid or to understand the massive financial component behind doing something like that. And what that causes is just these aspirations and inspirations that just remain ideals and don't actually become actualized, because the person is not being honest about what it will really take and what it will really ask of them. They just want the thing without wanting what it will ask of them. And that's just not compatible. Or to do what I did with the whole guitar thing and just get a little bit more honest with what is really true. What is really true for me today? Then naturally it becomes so much more easeful to align with what's true for me today, rather than to constantly put myself into a place of pressure around a vision that's not truly true at the deepest level. That's something I'm going through myself. If you've watched my last video, so much of what I'm going through is just being honest. And what I found is that unless I create the space and lifestyle to truly get in contact with the truth of who I am, then I'm not going to be able to live the life that I want. And so I was just putting myself in a box of conscious business mastery, making all this business content and just focusing on that out of just habitual patterns, because that's what's made me so much money. That's what's created all this success and wealth and allowed me to have so many amazing experiences. And I knew that there was something else that really wanted to come through. I've been in the healing world for so long. I've learned a tremendous amount in the last 3 years that I haven't been able to put forward. I won't say I haven't chosen to make the time to actually share with the world, because I've just been putting myself into this box. And it was gnawing away at me. My work was becoming less and less exciting, felt more like a job and less like a mission. And what I needed to do, which I've done, is create a lot of space in my morning. So many people will, including myself, create all these reasons for why they can't have space to do the things and to be the person that they want to be. What's important to me right now is making my home beautiful. I have a food forest with 35 fruit trees. I want to see my daughter grow up running through that fruit forest with her friends, with juice dripping down her cheeks, laughing and playing with the peaches and the mangoes and the loquats and the apples and the bananas and oranges, and just playing and just being in nature and having that total freedom and knowing what it's like to live with nature and to live in a beautiful home where the consciousness feels expansive and beautiful, and to nourish my body, to nourish my soul, to make space for prayer, to make space for writing, to have my Sunday evenings be blocked out to actually be healing nights where I can get into somatics and pray out loud and get really real and actually synchronize with the living, breathing, moment-to-moment version of me that wants to be birthed, and let whatever else needs to die simply die. Even though my egoic structure is clinging on to these old identities and old versions, it knows ultimately deep down inside that these things have to die. And when I trust that life is always going to give me something better, especially when I listen to God's call and when I decide to feed life, then I'm going to be fed. So much of my fear around not doing the things I want to do was based around finances and, just like Maslow's base hierarchy of needs of safety, security, etc. And even though I've achieved so much financially, there were still these scripts playing of, well, you have to keep going and being as successful as you've been financially with this old version of business, or you're not going to be okay, or everything is at risk. There's a lot of responsibilities I have. I've retired my mom. I bought her a house. I'm responsible for her, for my daughter, for my family, for my community, for myself, for a team, to pay my team every month. And I love that. And I want to continue that. And I don't want to make all these excuses that somehow it's either support them and sideline what's actually true for me, or choose what's true and right and real for me at the expense of safety, security, etc. That actually I can have both, which is so funny because that's what I've taught people how to do for so many years, is to have exactly the business, exactly the life that they want. And this is still something that I'm going to be working on for the rest of my life. It's a living, breathing process. So I just want you to contemplate, because these are all contemplations that I find, unless I'm in touch with, then I'm not actually bringing medicine to the world. I'm just playing out scripts. It still could be sincere intentions to help others, but I'm not really going to bring my highest self to everything that I do. I'm just going to keep playing the scripts and habits and patterns that maybe were appropriate for me a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago, but they're not appropriate for who I'm becoming. And so I created all this space in order to get in touch with that again, and to know that more wants to move through me. The amazing work I get to do with people when I'm dropped into my heart is life-changing, and it fills me up. And when I was in Utah doing this retreat for 22 people, it was all married couples, and we led them through body work and somatics and healing, and all of the couples had experienced infidelity in their relationship. And I just remember breakthrough after breakthrough after breakthrough happening, and me just being so lit up and saying, I could do this day. I could do today for the rest of my life. I could do this day over and over and over again for the rest of my life. It doesn't have to be something crazy or big. You don't have to make millions of dollars to be successful. You just have to know deeply what you want, what your deepest contribution is to this world. Also understand your deepest contribution when it comes to all of the little things in life, like doing that project to make your daughter's room more beautiful, tending to the garden, tending to your body, writing a friend, supporting somebody in need. That when I answer the call to life, and when I create space to answer the call to life, in all the ways it's calling me, that when I feed life, life is going to feed me. When I give life to life, life is going to give life to me. And that is trust. That is the only place I want to live from, and it is such a freaking practice to come to that trust. And so I want you to contemplate, which areas of your desire are you being dishonest with? And there's either two options, in my opinion, take it or leave it. It's to either A, actually align and get rid of all of the excuses of, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, someone else is going to be more advantaged or have better karma than me, or whatever it may be. And just get rid of all the excuses and actually just do the thing and make your life align with that thing and your calendar align with that thing. Or B, just get honest and say, I don't actually want these things, and then figure out what you actually want and then align with that. But to be in an in-between space is the same lack of integrity that subtly or grossly drains life from everyone and everything, because we're not actually living in connection with what life is asking of us. We're just making money, going through the motions. Maybe we have, I'm assuming if you're listening to this, you have a good heart and you have a sincere desire to breathe life into life. But that is, in my opinion, just not enough. And it's not to say you're not enough or that you're, some bad person. It's just about us getting to a platform of honesty and raising the standard that we hold ourselves to to actually just live our dream life. So what will it take for us to be honest as humans? That's what I wanted to discuss. And so just in case my last video wasn't clear, I'm still coaching people with conscious business mastery. Things are scaled down, but we're still accepting clients. I have a Marma bodywork retreat coming up for 7 days at my home here in November in Florida. We're going to learn somatics. We're going to learn the 5 processes of Marma Method bodywork. We get to give and receive treatments all day, every day, eat Ayurvedic cleansing meals, have experiences that are going to allow you to get more honest with yourself and break through whatever traumas and holds that have been gripping on your psyche, and then be able to bring that to either your families or yourself, or if you want to offer it professionally. About half of the people that come, they offer this professionally as a service. And so you are welcome to come. I'll put the links below to apply for either of those programs. And as always, I love to hear your thoughts on these topics that I share. And this is my attempt to just be honest with you all and share my heart without needing to perform, without needing to make it some sort of tactical video, but to just be real. And so I'll catch you on the next video. Much love. Peace out.